How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TB Wrestling. Today, I have Rockstar Rip Parker with me today. How are you doing, sir?
Um, in all honesty, I kind of have a sinking feeling in my stomach because it's one of those things where you see like people say they never wanted to talk about it, they never wanted to it to be discussed because again, what we talk about today are difficult subjects, and it's good that we're uncomfortable. It's good that
Yeah,
we're uncomfortable because it means there is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
yeah,
But I've not had this feeling since doing my exams in high school. That's how bad I'm currently feeling. But
yeah.
other than that, I'm doing okay. I'm healthy, so that's
That's
all I can
awesome.
ask for, really.
So today, we're going to be speaking out. We're going to be speaking about two of the big global. One is definitely a global movement, and another is a movement that has really started to hit the professional wrestling world. That being the Black Lives Matter movement and the Speaking Out movement.
Yeah,
The Black Lives Matter movement being something that has really dominated world conversation for probably the past month, and the Speaking Out movement's probably been dominating the pro wrestling world for the last week or so.
yeah. Both movements have consequences on the professional wrestling scene, but as well, both movements have a consequence, as you said, globally, and even the speaking out one has a consequence globally because similar to the Me Too movement, except the difference is it's not like producers and people with, and not just people that have got higher power than other people. It's also people that should be peers and should be colleagues and friends that are
Yeah,
victims in this. And unlike the Me Too movement, the speaking out movement has been, and again, I'm not like trying to be, oh, why is guys never spoken about, but the speaking out movement has been addressed by guys and girls equally that have been affected
hmm
by abuse in the pro wrestling scene. And I think that's where it's differed from the Me Too movement
hmm
because it's addressed the fact that abuse, physical, sexual, mental abuse, isn't just one sided, isn't just against
yeah,
women, isn't just against men, isn't against any gender, it is against everyone. Anyone can be a victim at any time. And I think that's the main difference compared this to the Me Too movement because the Me Too movement got a lot of flack and a lot of flack from people that fall mostly on the right side of politics, and it ended up becoming a point of like, oh, the feminists are taking over.
yeah,
Oh, men can't be men anymore, and it's not about that. It's not about men being men. It's not about women being lesser than men because they're not. Because at the end of the day, the way I've always seen it is that no one is better than anyone. Something that you're good at, I'm good. I might be bad at. Something I'm good at, you might be bad at.
hmm
You know, it's just there's always judging people based on like stuff that is out of their control is firstly massively wrong, secondly massively immature, and thirdly just makes you a dick. It just
yeah.
makes you a dick.
Yeah, well, first thing I want to address is yes, we are two white men discussing this issues, but I think one thing that we want to show is that we understand what's going on and that we are trying to be allies on both the sides and do as much as we can and try to use this platform to show support and just have an open dialogue because it's there's a lot going on, and it's important that if you do have privilege that you use that privilege to show support to those people who might not.
I think as well. Also, you can see on my Instagram page. One of the things I do is with story highlights. I have some that are like more light-hearted, like oh, when I did the 30-day wrestling challenge or the
Mhm.
30-day music challenge, and my album recommendation of the day. I also have a Black Lives Matter highlight reel, and I have a Speaking Out highlight reel because they're things that matter a lot to me as being someone who I've been accused so many times in my life of being a social justice warrior, being a social justice warrior cuck. But the thing is that I this is stuff I believe in. This is stuff that I'm adamant to be the right thing to do. And the way I look at it is like you wouldn't have a go at a Christian if they were spouting off about God, but if I'm spouting off something I believe in, it's
Yeah,
you can't have this one rule for one and one rule for another thing because that's what got us in this situation really more than anything else. Especially when it comes to the speaking out movement, like you see so many people excusing. the actions, or saying that people's accounts been like during the time people I tried speaking to about this, they weren't supportive, or some people were saying, "Oh, boys will be boys," or "It's just the way the business is." That idea of this one-way track mind thinking has caused so many problems, and not just in wrestling, but in the global scheme of things.
Yeah.
And I think another huge problem, which these really address, is the fact that something I've always kind of prided myself on is the fact that I can be stubborn, but I'm always willing to listen to both sides of an argument. Because the thing is that I don't think either side, especially when it comes to politics, are completely right or completely wrong. I think they have their good and their bad points. And I can understand the perspective of, so for example, in this country, we have multiple political parties, unlike in the States, where you've got the Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
We've got multiple parties, and all the parties, they might fall under like the same side of politics, but some might have more extreme measures. So a good example is Labour is our more predominant left-wing party. However, the Green Party, you would be able to argue, is further left in terms of the political spectrum, in terms of their beliefs, and in terms of the actions they want to take. But the thing is that I can still look at everyone's argument to be like, okay, I see what you're doing there, but their counter argument does bring up a valid point against yours. I can see what you're trying to say, but they've also proven that that point can be proven to be wrong. So, but I feel like with this situation, it's become such a black and white issue in terms of, especially like you said, like we're trying to show that we are allies to the cause. But a lot of people have adopted this black and white mentality with it. It's you're either with us or you're against us. And that is part of the problem, really.
Yeah.
This whole idea of like, you either stand with us or you're falling before us. And I think that's where a lot of problems are coming from. And I think it's important that we talk about each thing as delicately as possible, because again, we don't want to offend anyone. We want to just have this discussion where we show our point of views. Again, as people with with white privilege, it's important we use that privilege to educate.
And at this point, I do want to issue a potential trigger warning. We are going to try to talk in depth about this, which means, there could be certain situations that we talk about that could be triggering. And we completely understand if you just want to shut off now. I'm not going to be offended. Obviously, this video isn't made to get views. This video is just made to have an open dialogue about something that we feel is very important to talk about.
I would like to point out, I feel that we will talk mostly about the speaking out movement, because that is a movement that is more affecting the wrestling industry.
Definitely.
The Black Lives Matter movement is affecting the wrestling industry in big ways, but the speaking out movement started from the wrestling industry and is predominantly about wrestlers. So I think just for taste reasons, I feel we will end up talking more about this movement. And me personally, I have multiple horses in this race, but having friends who, in both guys and girls that have come out, that are my friends that have told their stories, and we'll get more into that in a bit. But if I start crying at any point, it's because this has really affected me a lot. Especially seeing people that I know come out with these stories. And again, we'll get more into it, but yeah, just don't be surprised if you continue watching the video, you see me kind of tear up a bit. There's just a pre-warning. Basically, just think, oh, he's watched the first 8 minutes of Up, or when Doug comes back up.
Yeah, and I'm really appreciative for you joining me. I know this is, a hard topic, because you're seeing friends just, being so brave, and it's, it's emotional for everyone.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think the first thing to talk about is just how this started. It started about 2 weeks ago.
I don't even know anymore. It feels like it started literally yesterday for me.
Yeah.
Like especially the speaking out one, it feels like started yesterday, because every time I look at my Twitter, it's still the top thing in my Twitter feed. People talking about it, people discussing it, which I think is great. I think there's a lot of people that are actually discussing the issues and not just victim blaming or victim shaming in this case. But I feel it's been such a roller coaster that I've lost track of when it started. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I think. But Don't quote me on that.
And it really predominantly started in the UK. Multiple wrestlers in WWE UK, Progress, and then David Starr had some serious accusations hurled at them.
Yeah, David Starr was probably the first of it all. I
Yeah,
remember the first thing I saw on Twitter was David Starr's statement. The thing is, I don't follow on Twitter his ex-girlfriend that called him out, so I only saw the response first. So immediately I was very confused because I was like, whoa, what the heck? I've literally just woken up. What is this? And then literally within an hour, it felt like name a top British wrestler, and like very likely they were being called out for some form of harassment. And I'm going to give credit right off the bat to the male superstars on the NXT UK roster, on the WWE roster, and just the male wrestlers in the British scene that called out these people that were their friends for their behaviour.
yeah,
Because I think, like, I don't ever believe in guilty until proven otherwise. But the thing is that when it comes to situations like this, it's the fact of if we just immediately just like take the victim's stories with a pinch of salt, we're proving why people don't want to come out with this information, why people don't want to talk about this stuff. If we're taking the victims of the stories with a pinch of salt, I always feel with these situations you need to take the person with the allegations against them, you take their stories with a pinch of salt. A good example would be the fact that I think one of the more popular British independent women's wrestlers, Millie McKenzie, who's absolutely
yeah,
fantastic to watch. If anyone hasn't seen her work, I recommend you go watch her. I strongly recommend her match at Wembley against Tony Storm and Ginny. It's personally one of my favourite matches of hers. But she called out Travis Banks mostly for their secret year relationship when she was younger. And I'll point out Millie McKenzie is about my age, if not a year or
yeah. She started pretty young, right?
yeah, she was very young, and for someone so young, she is so ungodly talented. It's ridiculous. But I think she's a year younger, or she's the same age as me. So for perspective, I'm 21. So and this relationship was when if I remember my facts
Yeah,
correctly, she was 17 or 18. So and Travis was pushing onto his 30s. So again, there's already a huge age gap, and Travis was her trainer
yeah,
in a pro. And she called him out for abusing his power and forming this very toxic relationship with her, standing outside her hotel room when she didn't want to talk to him and she wanted to just be alone. Travis then came out and gave his apology, which was very bullshit, because he basically tried justifying himself and tried doing what some people have done, where it's like, I assumed it was consensual, which you should never assume consent. You should
no,
never assume consent. But as well, he also said that when him and Millie broke up, they both apologized for any like harm they did to each other. So he thought the issue was done with. He denied the hotel story, and which prompted Millie to respond with screenshotting of the text messages with the conversation they were having whilst he was trying to get into a hotel room. And reading it is disgusting. It's absolutely abhorrent behavior. And for a man who had such a huge fan base, especially on the British independent scene, for a man who had people in the palm of his hand, for a man who people wanted to see win the NXT UK title, the Progress title, Super Strong Style 16, all this stuff throughout his career that people wanted to see him win, for him to abuse his power as a trainer and as a person high up in the British independent scene is absolutely disgusting behaviour. And I 100% condone his actions, because that's not how you should be. That's how no one should be. And I think that is a good example of what I say we should take the accuser's story at face value, and then take the person who's being blamed with a pinch of salt, just because, like this story and a couple of other stories have proven, 9 times out of 10, the victim in this situation is normally the one that's
Yeah.
correct. Again, 9 out of 10, which is probably a bit high, probably more 7 or 8 out of 10. But again, that's still way too high
Yeah.
of a number of accusations that are true. In my opinion, that is a disgusting number of accusations to be true.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a question for you that I was thinking about just now. So one thing that we have seen, we've seen a lot of these allegations by these brave men and women, but then we've seen these stories or tweets or radio snippets pulled out from these kind of like investigative Twitter accounts that kind of try to find dirt in anyone. And I think it's important, like it's good that we found that, and people should be called out for your actions. But do you think these accounts that have been trying to dig up dirt on everyone, do you think they're kind of taking away from the people who are actually telling the stories that is their own, instead of, because a lot of these, like the Sammy Guevara one, it got huge traction, but it was just a Twitter account looking for dirt that found it.
I don't like. I normally refer to the Twitter accounts that do that as the true dirt sheets, because they are the ones that are looking for actual dirt on people. They're the ones that are looking for skeletons in the closet. I both dislike and like them, mostly because I like the fact that there are people that are questioning the reality of situations. I'm someone that believes you should always don't take like if you're told a story, you see, but it's like uh, you're told two stories and the truth is somewhere in the middle. I always find that the true dirt sheet boys are the ones that get that truth, but the way they go about exposing that truth, I think, is the wrong way of doing it. I think the correct way to do it would be, if you have this dirt, speak to the people, especially when it comes to stuff like the Sammy Guevara situation. I think the better situation would have been to contact Sasha or contact someone who could get into contact with Sasha and be like, look, these guys have found this radio snippet or this interview snippet where Sammy Guevara's made this very tasteless joke about you. Because at the end of the day, I think exposing someone like that, firstly, it does put the aggressor in the position where they have to defend themselves and puts them on the back foot, but it can also catch the victim off guard. And if they've got no prior context to this, if they have no
Exactly.
inclination to this, that can really screw with someone mentally if this information is just dropped on them like a bomb. So I think it would have been, even if they did it where it's like they got in contact with Sasha, or got in contact with someone who could get in contact with Sasha, and we're just like, we have this information about Sammy Guevara. We wanted to tell you first before we put it publicly. We'll post it in about a couple of hours or so. We'll get, just so you have a bit of time to process this, and if needed, deal with it how you want to deal with it.
Because
like
it's not giving Sasha the chance. A lot of people are coming out publicly because that's what they want to do, but we don't know if that's how Sasha wanted to deal with it. She could have wanted to just reach out to Sammy privately behind doors, because maybe this isn't the way she wanted things to go about, and it shouldn't be decided how it goes down by a random Twitter account. It should go down by what the victim wants.
I do. For example, I think the Sammy Guevara situation turned out okay because it got resolved. And as I said to you beforehand, I think the Sammy Guevara situation was exactly how most of these situations should be handled. In terms
Absolutely.
of the aggressor made a very poor judgment call, and the victim reached out, extended that olive branch, and explained and educated Sammy in why that sort of joke.
And Sammy seemed willing to listen. He seemed like he was very willing to listen.
Exactly. And not just that, the fact that Sammy has been, the fact that AEW's response to that was to suspend Sammy without pay, donate the money to charity, which again can be seen as like, oh, this is a company just trying to look like the good guys. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't like YouTubers that go around giving homeless people like money and food, but but at the end of the day, that homeless person is still getting something. Like, there's better ways to go about it, but at the end of the day, at least they are getting that burger. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
exactly.
So at the end of the day, at least these charities are getting the money that would be going towards Sammy, and the fact they're putting Sammy on a training sensitivity training course, which I think is something that all companies should do just on the off. Before like I think in the performance center at the WWE they should have sensitivity lessons, and I feel because I feel like some people would be like, oh, but then they then know how to avoid getting in situations like this. And it's like, yeah, the way they avoid it would be from learning from those sessions and being like,
Mhm.
okay, so how I avoid the situation is don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Like it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. And the fact that I give major props to Sasha, major props to Sasha. I think she did the absolute best with what she was given. And to quote Cody Rhodes, paraphrase Cody Rhodes, she was given chicken shit and she made chicken salad at
Yeah.
the end of the day. And I think the fact that Sammy has shown his remorse at the situation and has shown the fact that he now, after speaking to Sasha, who has shown him and explained to him
Yeah.
what he did was wrong, because it'd be like me explaining to Sammy what he did wrong. It's one thing coming from me, but it's another thing when it's coming from the victim. It's another situation entirely
Yeah.
because the victim is the one who genuinely suffered in that situation, not me. So if the speaking out movement had ended up more with, especially when it comes to more the physical abuse in terms of like backstage bullying and hazing process, not so much the sexual harassment stuff. I think that stuff should be dealt with by the police, which it is. But when it comes to the true dirt sheets, dishing out the dirt online, I don't like them because a lot of them posted lists of people that had been accused during the
And
speaking
some
out
of them
movement.
were false. Some of them had people that were not accused.
Exactly. Sierra Loxton put it best on Twitter. If anyone doesn't follow Sierra Loxton, I recommend you do follow her because she has become kind of like the sort of the face, sort of the
Mhm.
advocate for the speaking out movement, along with people like Kate Harvey and stuff. And I and she said, don't listen to these people because we have not officially put our list because we are currently dealing with the police. We are currently in contact with the police, and I think it's fantastic that the police force in the UK are dealing with this. Initially they said the Yorkshire police, but from the sounds of it, from what I've read, police forces from around the country are taking these very, very seriously because
Mhm.
it's clearly an ingrown problem in the industry.
Yeah. It's and it's harmful because I hate saying this, but a lot of these dirt sheets, they know it's going to get them clicks, and unfortunately, they know if they publish a very digestible list that people can find, they know people are going to take it at face value, and it's really harmful because if you do have people who haven't done this,
Yeah.
it's because unfortunately, when accused, it's gonna leave a blemish on your career. And
Oh,
I
definitely,
think,
definitely.
and which is why people who haven't done it shouldn't, it is awful if people who have been, at least as far as we know, decent human beings to get put on that list. It's
Yeah.
awful.
It's it's a it's a shame. It's a big shame because at the end of the day, the way I personally view it is the fact of don't listen to the dirt sheets when they give a list. Because the thing is that if you look at most of these lists, they're just naming the people that have been accused, and at best, they're naming the people that have been accused and who accused them. They're not saying what they've been accused of. So someone who has just been accused for like mental abuse is now being judged on the same lines as people that have been essentially pedophiles, that have been like speaking to underage girls or like been training underage girls, making derogatory comments about them and getting them to do things that they should never have to do, that no one should ever have to do.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm not trying to say that these people that have done like the very minor of these claims, that they should not be judged harshly. They shouldn't be named and shamed. What I'm saying is they shouldn't be shamed on the same level as people that have done these massive crimes such as pedophilia and sexual assault.
Yeah,
Hang
definitely.
on. Sorry, I had to sneeze. But yeah, I don't, because the thing is that I would never judge an unarmed robber on the same scale as a mass murderer.
Yeah,
You know, it's because they're two completely different things, and both are a crime. But looking at it as a black and white issue, you'd be like, they should be judged the exact same. They should both suffer the same sentence because it's a black and white issue. But it's not. It's a grey issue. And the idea that people can't see that nothing is a black and white issue, it's always issues are grey, which it kind of upsets me because you've got these people that are like either so unwilling to listen to, like, if evidence came out that proved that the accuser was lying, you got people that will wholeheartedly believe that to be fake news.
exactly.
And you've got people that see the accusations as being fake news. And again, I use the fake news thing because I will give Donald Trump one bit of credit. He managed to make a phrase to explain people's opinion on stuff that they were unwilling to believe.
And in
And that is,
America, it's very easy to use fake news at the president. So yeah, totally.
don't. I kept seeing a bunch of after that Trump rally where they had to take down the set in like New York because I think it was New York where they had to take down the set 'cause, like 30 people showed up and
Oh,
the rally was still going on.
the one in Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Sorry, I
Yeah,
knew it was. I knew it sounded big, but I just couldn't.
yeah.
Okay, but I remember seeing like videos of like some guy recording the stage being taken down and then just cutting to their friend on their phone watching the rally and just laughing,
Yeah.
which I found very amusing. And then you see the pictures from the rally, the actual rally where it was, and it's like near empty. And you have people in the comment sections of them being like fake news. It was packed,
Yeah.
and it's like there's photographic and video evidence that proves you're wrong,
Yeah.
and you're still gonna say fake news. All right, to each their own.
Yeah.
To each their own. That's the more lighthearted this video is gonna get. But
But yeah,
it's
it's frustrating. I mean, because you know, anyone who's done stuff like this, it's awful.
yeah,
And if they have, but it is truly awful to just see a list. It's just list of people called out on the speaking out movement, and seeing names like Sammy Guevara being right next to names like Joey Ryan and Jimmy Havoc, people who have like they've
done some.
fucked. They have done some horrible things, and what Sammy did was awful, awful. Not even close on the same playing field as Joey Ryan.
No, no, and I think this speaking up movement, more than any other movement, in my opinion, has proven. Because the thing is that like I'm not trying to belittle the Black Lives Movement at all. So don't get me wrong. But in
Yeah,
terms of wrestling, the speaking out movement has proven more so than anything that we should not be so quick to hold people in high regard.
exactly.
Because as Joe Wright even stated in his statement, which majority of it I don't believe, but the fact that so that does line up is after the dick flip, after the like first dick flip he did, after the like internet success he got from that, after how big he got from that, that's when these accusations seem to kind of line up as like being after that initial thing that got him
And
this
for
fame
him,
he never had.
he got popular like overnight. His
Exactly.
was like not a thing where it was gradual. Like, you know, he went from being a Joey Ryan indie wrestler some people knew about to being on ESPN in the States and getting millions and millions of people
Yeah. I
talking
mean,
about him.
even in the UK, I had friends that never watched wrestling, but they've seen the dick flip gifs. They've seen them because they're out there. And the thing is that I'm not trying to justify his actions at all. But what I'm saying is the fact that people loved Joey Ryan. They adored Joey Ryan. They thought he was pretty much most people thought he was fantastic, except like old school fans of wrestling, like the Jim Cornette style
Yeah.
fans. Um, but looking at what he's done, looking at what he's been accused of doing, that's not no. So you can look at him and be like, that's not Joey Ryan I know, because you don't know Joey Ryan. You've got no idea what he's really about. You know what I mean? It's sort of this
Yeah.
fact of, I think a lot of people, I think the reality era of wrestling has ruined wrestling in terms of the fact that people are now convinced because social media, because of how most shows are booked, that we know everything about these wrestlers. We know absolutely everything. Um, but I mean, look at David Starr, for example. Just this independent movement he had was something that I wholeheartedly believe in, and I still wholeheartedly believe in. I support the independent movement. I support the idea and the of unionizing pro wrestling. for the betterment of wrestling. But do I support David Starr? Absolutely not. I condone his actions 100%. But at the end of the day, the independent company set up is a good thing. But as Pete Dunne pointed out on Twitter, when someone asked him about his opinion on the David Starr situation, Pete Dunne said, I never really liked David Starr. Me and him never really got along. So the thing is that we'd assume, oh, they must get along, surely.
Yeah.
Just based on the fact of like, they never mentioned anything on Twitter. They never mentioned anything on Instagram. They never mentioned anything on a Facebook Live interview. So surely they must get along. You know what I mean? It's this idea, the fact that because social media, we know everything about everyone, but we don't. We know jack shit at the end of the day. And the way I see it is the fact of it's good. Social media is good in the fact of people now have a platform to speak up and speak out about this awful stuff and spread information that can be true, can be false, but you can look for the information yourself and then find the truth within the information. You know, it's like, again, like I said, two stories, the truth somewhere in the middle. But when it comes to this, I think a lot of people, like Joey Ryan, Jimmy Havoc on the British independent scene, like pretty much most people loved Jimmy Havoc, at least from my perspective of talking to people, because they loved some of the crazy stuff he did. But the fact of the matter is he has done terrible, terrible things. And I think this has proved more than anything else, because the thing is that with the Black Lives Matter movement, we've shown a lot of support from it from the wrestling community. We've shown a lot of people within the Black community standing up. I think famously, Big E and Kofi Kingston taking the knee during SmackDown was a big statement of, regardless of what the company may think, we are showing our support for our fellow brothers and sisters that are fighting on the streets, that are fighting online, that are protesting against the systematic racism in America and around the world. So I think that it's had effects on the industry, but not like the speaking out movement has, because the speaking out movement started and will end with the wrestling industry, I'm hoping. But again, it's a difficult one to talk about, because again, like, say tomorrow it gets revealed that such and such who's been accused has been it's been proven that they're not guilty. I think a good example would be the fact of at the time of recording, my head trainer, Sweet Soraya, was accused of some awful things by girls that she had trained and stuff. I've never seen any of the stuff that the accusations have said. Like, I've never personally seen it or heard about anything like this. It's literally when I'd read some of the statements, that was the first thing I'd ever heard about this, especially about Soraya, because pretty much most people were in agreement, especially within the company, that Soraya is one of the best trainers we've got. But some of the girls that have accused her have come out and said that they, especially the main accusations, have been proven to be false, because they've said they've lied. So again, that's why I said earlier about like 8 out of 10 of these stories are going to be true. Because they're going to be the couple where there are people that are jumping on the bandwagon and people that are trying to be a part of the conversation. And you're going to get that regardless. You're always going to get that. It's my main problem with companies changing, like their logos have rainbows in it, or Skittles releasing white Skittles instead of the rainbow Skittles during Pride Month and stuff, because it doesn't feel real. It feels like you're just trying to be a part of the conversation. It feels like you're just trying so hard to be with the in crowd. And I feel that, again, I'm not saying everyone in the speaking out movement is a liar, because I know people within the community that have spoken out, and I know them well enough to say they are not liars. And 1 second. But the thing is that you're always going to get it. It's very similar to, I'm assuming you may have heard of Jimmy Savile.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of police officers who are involved in the case will tell you that, well, a lot of them, one of them even came out and said the way we were able to tell who was telling truth and who was lying whoever over embellished their story, whoever was crying their eyes out, were normally not telling the truth because they were trying to make it look too real. Whereas the ones that are more quiet about it, the ones that are more straight to the point with it, were normally ones telling the truth because they're the ones that are showing actual mental scarring. So even a situation like that proves that there are people that will just jump on the bandwagon either for popularity or just to be part of the conversation. And I don't condone that behavior because it makes a mockery of what the speaking out movement is about. The speaking out
And
movement
it takes away from those reports that are real. It takes away from the
exactly.
people who need who need what they've said. Like if they're someone who has been so fucking brave to come out and talk about something that happened to them, and then someone taking away, I hate saying a spotlight because I'm not saying people are doing this to get spotlight, but it's the only way I know how to say it. But some, doing something that is so fucking brave, and what they're doing is being overshadowed. And that's why it's like doing that. And also, if you accuse someone falsely just to get attention, you're not, because you're going to ruin someone's life.
Exactly. I think Mark Haskins, who is one of my heroes. Like I adore Mark Haskins. I think his work is fantastic. I think the way he conducts himself is fantastic. Him and Vicky Haskins are just like my dream relationship in terms of like how I want to be.
Yeah.
Like just joking around with each other and always seem to be having a good time. Like again, we don't know what happens behind closed doors in terms of like maybe they argue a fair bit. We don't know that. But from what the face value of their relationship and the way they are with each other and the way they talk about each other and the way they pretty much adore each other, that's an ideal relationship. But Vicky Haskins came out with her stories, and the stuff that's happened to her is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Promoters asking photographers to take upskirt photos of her while she was unaware of it. Disgusting behavior. And in terms of Vicky Haskins, that's the tip of the iceberg for the poor woman. She's gone through a lot. Mark Haskins, on the other hand, was accused a few years ago of sexual assault by someone who just wanted by someone, and she then came out after people started talking shit about Mark. She came out and said she was lying. She said that she made up the lie about Mark so she could get like clicks and views and popularity. So again, that further proves the point. A relationship with two people, one that is accusing and has got too many stories to be making this up on the spot, and someone who has been in a situation of being accused and it being a false accusation. But the way both of them have handled it and the way they've spoken about it, the way they've talked about it, I think is very admirable, and I think it's the best way to go about it. I could give you a list of people I think have dealt with this situation fantastically in terms of like mainstream, like names on the British independent scene that people will definitely know because either they've been affiliated with big companies like Ring of Honor, WWE, TNA, and all that. That kind of come. I don't want to say face of the movement because I think Pete Dunne put it best when you make something a face, when you give something a face, when you give it something like a front runner, a foreleader of this movement for change, you're setting it up to fail because most of the time they never go through because ego and selfishness will get in the way sometimes, especially when you hold these people in high regard that don't deserve it. So, for example, a lot of people see the independent movement as David Starr, and that's not the way you should be looking at that movement. A lot of people go to see the speaking out movement from saying that these people that I could list right now are the faces of this movement, which is not the case for it. These are just the people that are trying to focus the stories in terms of being like, and the ones that are in talks with companies, promoters, and the police trying to get shit done.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to not look at them as the leaders of the movement, just look at them as allies and victims that are trying to bring change.
Totally.
And don't follow them, stand by them, walk with them, run with them, fight with them. Don't make these to be the faces, don't make these to be the leaders, don't make these to be the higher ups of the movement. They are just like you. They are just want change for the better. And I think that's the most important way to look at it. And it's the same with the Black Lives Movement. It's all these movements. When you put a face on it, I think the best example to disprove my point is Martin Luther King. And But the thing is that he was someone who was driven by his unselfish desire for everyone to be treated as equals. And I think that's the best way to go about it. If you're going to have a leader, have it be people that are unselfish and are doing it for the right reasons. The issue is nowadays, this movement especially has proven you can't trust everyone. Like if I go back like to when NXT UK started, if I'd gone Jordan Devlin, Joe Coffey, El Ligero, and Travis Banks were all uh, were all going to be called out in a movement against sexual harassment in pro wrestling, would you believe me? If I had said this to you a year or two ago, no. Exactly, because the thing is that we've held these people in such high regard without thinking about it. We've held these people in this position that they rightfully don't deserve. And I think that's what's caused a lot of the problems, and why you have a lot of people that are so unwilling to change their perspective. And I live my life on perspective is everything. You need to be able to see it from different, you need to be able to look at every situation from a different angle. It's the same thing with solving a problem. If you can see it from a different angle, if you can get a new perspective on a situation, you will be able to deal with pretty much anything in life. You'll be able to get through anything pretty much. I mean, that's helped me with that's one of my ways of dealing with my own mental health issues that I've suffered from, like depression and anxiety. It's helped to just look at it from different perspectives. Like there was times where I thought like about just ending it, and that's how bad I'd gotten to at some point. But I changed my perspective to be from that of my friends, of my family, of people that tried to help me, being like, if I go, their sacrifice they made for me is then nothing, and then I've ended my life and in consequence ruined theirs. So looking at things from a different perspective, I think is the right way to go about this situation, especially considering that, like we've said, there's going to be stories that are bullshit and there's going to be stories that are the God's honest truth. And I think it's important to keep an open mind, but don't say that anyone accusing anyone is immediately false or immediately lies because it's your favorite wrestler. Look past your favoritism. Look past your selfish desire for it to be false. Look at it for what it is. Because I saw so many people accuse Millie McKenzie, again using her because I think hers is the best example that people are going to know, because Millie has worked in the UK, in the US, and Japan. She's done lots of stuff all over the shop, so a lot of people are going to recognize her name over some of the other girls that have come out. Her story, a lot of people, before she put them screenshots up, accused her of lying. She puts the screenshots up, she gives evidence, and then some people were still unwilling to change their beliefs, but then you saw people that had changed their beliefs. They had commented saying, I didn't believe you at first, but after seeing evidence, I'm sorry, I didn't believe you.
Yeah.
And it's fucked up, man. It's fucked up.
Yeah. I think one thing that I think about is this was probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point, but are you familiar with like What Culture WWE?
Yes, I'm very familiar with What Culture.
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, but right when all the people who are now cultaholic announced they were leaving,
Adam
and Adam
out.
Blompied was accused, and originally he did this one video where he just it was a pity party video, and then he released a second video where he was like, no, I fucked up, and he took 2 years away, and it gave him time to really think about what he did, and now he's back with Wrestle Talk. And
I'm glad he's back personally. What he did was wrong. He's admitted he was wrong. Yes, there's the pity party video, but then, like he said, there's the second video where he says, I didn't make that video to be a pity party. I made that video to tell you I've fucked up, and I need this time away so I can change, so I can grow. The thing is that I feel if you and me, it's really difficult to say. If you immediately discount people, if you immediately paint people out to be a certain way, you're denying them the chance for change. Like, I'm someone that believes in second chance. I'm someone that believes that everyone deserves a second chance, because I believe that there's two types of people in this world. Well, mostly two types of people. Again, it's not a black and white issue, because some people fall one way, but then pick themselves back up. Either with second chance, you're either going to make good on your promise and change for the better, or you're just going to relapse. And again, you could change yourself for the better for about a year and then relapse. You know what I mean? Or you could
Yeah.
relapse, but then that relapse could be harder than the initial problem, and that's what kickstarts the idea of like, I need to make myself better. And I think with that belief, which some people see as just blind optimism, but I see as the fact I've seen it firsthand, that when people are given
change.
Exactly, most people can change. Again, there are some people that can't because, like we said, they relapse or they try to change and they just don't have the strength to follow through. Especially, I think addiction is the best way to, like the best like sort of story I could say when it comes to this sort of situation. I know people that have been alcoholics that have tried going to AA meetings, have tried going like cold turkey, have tried everything, but life gets in the way and then they've just relapsed. And I've seen people accuse them of being weak-willed. And I want to say it's weak-willed. I'd say it's just the fact of, for some people, change is a lot easier than most. And I think we can see that with people's perspective on the situations of Black Lives Matter and the Speaking Out movement. The amount of people that have been willing to change their perspective compared to the people that are unwilling to change their perspective. And I think that's the important way to look at it. It's the fact of, everyone deserves a second chance, and if they're shown, like Adam Blompier, have shown that they have grown and that they are wholeheartedly apologetic for what they've done, and they're not just doing it for clicks and views, then all the best to them, or the best of luck to them, in my opinion. When it comes
And
to
they
stuff
should be
like,
welcome, and they should be welcome back to given that opportunity. I think, if for some of these wrestlers who I really think need to just step away from the industry, and really just take them time for themselves, if they come back in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and they show they've changed, I think it's okay to welcome them back, but we need to see they've made some progress.
I think when it comes to people, a lot of people will see it on Twitter, if they follow me on Twitter, or if they follow me on Instagram, would see I've put hashtag fuck Ligero.
Yes.
Mostly because if you look at what Ligero has done, and I have a horse in this race in terms of the fact of one of my close friends, Violet O'Hara, who you've interviewed, who I got you in contact with. She is one of the people that have accused Ligero of sexual assault and rape. And I've known Violet for 2 or 3 years. She is not a liar. She is, and I've sung her praises so much.
She was absolutely genuine in the interview.
She is.
Yeah.
Like I said to you, she's one of the most genuine, nicest, like most genuinely good people I've ever met in my life, that outside of wrestling included. She is just such a good, kind-hearted person, and I adore her to bits. She's an absolutely wonderful human being. I was at work doing my Monday job when I read her statement on Twitter, and hang on. Oh, again, like I said, I might start crying at some point because I'm not gonna lie. I read her statement when I was at work, and I had to say to my coworkers, I said, I need like 5-10 minutes, please. And I almost broke down at work, just into tears after reading what she put. And again, knowing how genuine she is and how honest she is, that broke me. I was already pissed off with the stuff I was reading in terms of like the fact that anyone could do this sort of stuff in this day and age. Is like, again, I'm not stupid. I know this stuff happens, but the amount that came out, I think shocked me, especially considering how literal out there it was immediately. Like, it wasn't like drip fed through. It was, here is it, everything pretty much right off the bat, and then we're going to drip feed some more stuff. But Violet's story, reading that and knowing the person, that killed me. I nearly broke down to tears at work, and I almost had to say I've got to go home because I was in no. I should have gone home because I was in no state to work. I was off all day after reading that, and then I got home. I kind of screamed and shouted a bit because I didn't know what else to do. I messaged Violet that day, and I was like, "Look, I've read what you put. What happened to you is wrong on every single level. And if you need me, I'm here for you as always. No, I think perspective is important. The fact that I have a friend who is
Yeah.
involved in this movement, it means more to me. And I'm not saying it wouldn't have meant anything to me if this had never happened to her. What I'm saying is it hits closer to home when it's someone you know. You know what I mean? It's one of them things where it's like, it's kind of like when they say, until something happens to you, you don't ever truly know how you'd react. Like first aid training, I know seems like very mundane, but like, yeah, you could be first aid trained, but you don't know how your shock reaction is going to be if first aid is needed on someone in an emergency. You know what I mean? It's sort of this whole idea of like, you can have all the training in the world, you could know exactly what to do,
Yeah.
but until it happens, you're not going to know how you react. You're not going to know how you're going to feel about the situation. And that, if anyone hasn't read her statement, I please go find her statement on Twitter. I read all of the statements, read everyone's statements. Again, with the Ligero situation as well, the fact that he's been outed not just by people that have accused him of rape, but by people who have been in locker rooms with him and have said he's a bastard of a human being. Amir Jordan saying that whilst Amir was fasting, because again, Amir is a religious man, he follows his religion. Whilst he was fasting, Ligero making him walk barefoot around for like a few mile run and stuff like that. And then Ginny, and again, a name people will recognize because she's done stuff all over the shop, calling him out for being an asshole, and Kaylee Ray calling him out. Kaylee Ray's was the best call out, in my opinion, in terms of the fact of, she said, your apology was good because, as always, you've proven what we've all said about you for years, the fact that you know how to get sympathy even when you're the bastard in the situation. So that was, I think, again, the most sassy comeback in terms of like actual comedic value. But then it's just one of those things where it's like, I know people that adored Ligero in terms of like his wrestling ability and his character and stuff. And I know people that were so shocked to see and hear that this was going on. And I kind of looked at these people that came to me saying, can you believe this happened? I was like, yeah, I can believe it. Because it's the same with the Black Lives Matter movement. I know people who are of an older generation. And again, I don't want to say all older generation, but I know people of an older generation who were convinced that stuff like this didn't exist anymore. Like racism was dealt with.
Yeah.
And my answer to that is, if you think racism was dealt with when slavery was abolished, if you think racism was dealt with after Martin Luther King, if you feel that sexism was dealt with after after the suffragette movement in the UK, if you feel that any of these movements where they succeeded was the end of the torment and suffering, then your perspective on situations is A, blinded, B, shut off from the rest of the world, and C, oblivious to facts and figures. Because you don't have to be a smart ass to be able to go online, go on Google, and find this information out for yourself. Hell, slavery was abolished in after the U.S. Civil War. Texas had slaves for a good few years afterwards because it didn't have any representatives from the government, so they were allowed to slaves there, and that's just evidence enough. The fact of sexism, like the Me Too movement, and the fact that there are men that still treat women like second-class citizens and treat them as just objects. A good example for the sexism one, I'm going to just change my angle a bit, just for the light.
Sounds good.
That just proves how long we've been talking. The fact that that's changed. So I know for a fact you saw my Instagram story a few days ago, the email that was sent to Katie Harvey. For those who don't know, Katie Harvey is an Irish professional wrestler who is kind of like, I've always seen her as sort of like the godmother of Irish wrestling, because she, even before Becky Lynch, she was the first like Irish female wrestler that I'd ever heard of. And then I'd heard about Becky, then I'd heard about other women, and I did make a joke on Twitter, and it wasn't so much a joke, it was more meant on like a thing that I thought was ironic, yet and ironic and funny in the situation of it being ironic. So Katie Harvey had cut a promo in Progress a few years ago called "That's Not Progress," where she was saying about how the fans booed her and made her feel unwelcomed in Progress and stuff like this. And she kept saying throughout the interview, throughout the promo, "That's not progress." And ironically enough, Progress, a lot of the guys have been outed as being either sex pests, bullies, and the people that were in charge have been proven that they didn't deal with the situations the correct way.
Yeah.
And I jokingly put, like, to quote Katie Harvey, "That's not progress," because progress should be about actual progression within the industry and should be about pushing the boundaries and pushing forward storytelling and wrestling ability and showing the world that this is what wrestling can be if given the chance. But Katie Harvey, as you saw in my story, got sent an email by this fan, and I'm not going to read the email out. If you want to see it, it's out there. You can find it on Katie Harvey's Twitter. You can go to my Instagram page. It's on my highlight reel for the Speaking Out movement. But you saw it. The stuff that person had sent Katie Harvey was disgusting, abhorrent, and just shows the fact that anyone who believes that social issues such as racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia has been dealt with is A, massively mistaken, and B, massively, massively oblivious to the real world. And again, it's perspective. Like, I know people in my personal life that have got a very black and white view of things and don't agree with transgenders, transsexuals, bisexuals, and all this, and they say it's not natural and all this stuff. And I'm like, neither is marriage, firstly. When was the last time you went down? When was the last time you saw a pair of mallard ducks getting married? Anyone that thinks that humans are the only animals to have sex for pleasure clearly don't know about emperor penguins, because those fuckers will rape dead children, dead penguins, other men, other women, other children, and other animals they can see. Dolphins are known for it. Loads of animals have sex just for pleasure. It is not just a biological need to make more children. Most animals could not give a shit.
Yeah.
And the argument that it's like, it's not natural. I always point out this: Vikings, Egyptians, and ancient Greek and ancient Rome. If you look at most of them couldn't give a shit who you were fucking, as long as you were just having a good time and you weren't being a dickhead to anyone. They really couldn't care less. And again, I don't want to have a go at organized religion, but organized religion kind of did ruin a lot of things for people, especially in terms of, like, if you look at Egyptians especially and ancient Greeks, the amount of innovations they were able to make because they didn't have all these restrictions.
Yeah.
Because, well, they had restrictions, but they didn't have so strict restrictions, and how well they were able to adapt socially, and the fact they didn't care about sexuality and stuff like that just proved that they were able to do more. And then organized religion came along. Hell, witch trials, people being burned at the stake just because they were trying to bring progression around. You know, it's, again, I'm not having to go at organized religion. If you believe in that, then, like, you do you. It's not for me personally, but I'm never going to judge anyone based on a religious belief.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that people are blind to the reality of the situation in terms of the fact of anyone that has an argument against something, there is going to be an argument for it. I think the only thing that anyone has ever agreed on is pedophilia is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing everyone universally agrees with, barring obviously pedophiles.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but in the UK, we have prisons for pedophiles, because even if you're a mass murderer, even if you're an unarmed robber, even if you're in prison for drug charges, if you're a pedophile in prison, you're going to get killed. You will get killed. So I don't know if you guys in the States have like prisons that are just pedophiles and stuff.
I don't think we do. I think they might have different
By the way,
levels.
pineapple juice. If anyone's thinking of drinking beer.
But no, I don't think we have one specifically for pedophiles, but we should.
Yeah, but again, I think it's awful the fact that it's taken Breonna Taylor and George Floyd being killed, and David Starr to be outed as sex pest, for these movements to have gotten major traction.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to a lot of people, I suffer with morbid curiosity. It's a deadly disease at this point. But I always ask the morbid questions that no one wants to think about, especially when it comes to stuff like this. I've asked people in the industry that I know, that I've been like, if the coronavirus, if COVID-19 had not become a worldwide pandemic, would these responses have happened? In terms of, a lot of people were frustrated, especially stateside. We're frustrated with being in lockdown. We're frustrated they weren't able to resume business, and they had a lot of anger towards the government. Then 2 innocent people got killed, and look at the reaction. You know what I mean? Like, and then if you look at the speaking out movement, if COVID-19 hadn't come around, shows would still be going on. People wouldn't be stuck at home. And I worry that in a different timeline, in a different reality, in a different universe, COVID-19 had never become a pandemic. Wrestling was still continuing, and people were still getting assaulted. People weren't stuck at home where they were kind of like forced to like think about this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like this morbid curiosity of mine where I'm like, if such and such hadn't happened, would this have happened? You know, it's like, it's not a pleasant thought. It's a very dark thought when you think about it. But I worry that without this pandemic, stuff like this would have just been allowed to continue because no one would have talked about it. Because the thing is, we kind of have no choice but to address the issue now. We have to talk about it. We have to be uncomfortable. We have to, as a community of not white people, black people, gay people, men, women, as people, as a community of people and of human beings, we need to be united more than ever against those that would separate us based on things that are out of our control. The fact of the matter is that we all deserve to be treated as equals until we've proven that we don't deserve the right to be, in my opinion. If you kill someone, you don't deserve your rights. At the end of the day, because you've taken a life that deserved to live. You know what I mean? It's a good example. So I've mentioned before about Inside the Ropes and how big a fan I am of their interviews and their sort of like talk, almost talk show sort of style of doing stuff. There was one they did with Paul Heyman, and he spoke about how he was meant to work with Chris Benoit and was meant to be his manager and stuff before being Brock Lesnar's manager. Someone had said something, and Paul Heyman's response was this: 3 people died that night. Only one of them had the choice, though. And that's something that's always stuck with me, in the fact that is, I think, a good way of looking at it in terms of what he did was wrong, and he did. 2 people died that didn't deserve to die and didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Whereas Chris had the choice to take life. And yes, I know there was like the drugs, the alcohol, and the concussion issue. At the end of the day, though, the choice was still made. And at the end of the day, again, I think the fact that his son was blacklisted essentially from companies and no one was allowed to really talk to him is disgusting. I think AEW did the best thing by trying to bring Chris Benoit's son and Nancy's, I believe Nancy was the sister. I haven't seen the Dark Side of the Ring documentary in a while, but Chris Benoit's wife's sister, to reunite them families, because they were just all told that they didn't like that they weren't speak to each other. So this may seem like a tangent, but I promise it's going somewhere. The fact of the matter is that no one, whether you be black, white, gay, bi, trans, asexual, man, woman, transgender, gender fluid, regardless, at the end of the day, everyone deserves respect. Absolutely. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness. Something I'd put a lot on my Instagram posts, especially when talking about stuff like this. Because I think the first time I really used it was when Hannah Kimura died, because that hit me like a ton of bricks. Being a big fan of her work in Stardom, I loved her match at the Madison Square Garden show with ROH and New Japan's Supercard. But the fact she was a similar age to me, that hit me like a ton of bricks. The fact she took her own life. And I remember I ended that Instagram post with, it was along the lines of, do what's right, do what's decent, and above all else, just be kind to each other.
Yeah.
Because this life is too short, man. There is so many problems with the world right now, and adding to the negativity is not helping anyone. It's not making you a better person. And we've got more important things to worry about. We shouldn't be at each other's throats all the time. We need to, like, we're not always going to agree on everything. A lot of us are going to have disagreements, especially the very opinionated people like me. But we need to be able to see from other perspectives. We need to be able to look at it from a different angle. We need to be united so that we can make this world a better place. We can make life a wonderful adventure. And that's the way I see it at the end of the day.
Definitely. Well, do you have any final thoughts on what's been going on?
I think it's really difficult to sum up, like, in like few words how I feel, really, because as you know, and my opinions are very, very vast. I think, like I said, just do what's right, do what's decent, and be kind. Because at the end of the day, it's not worth it. It is not worth being a dick. It's not worth being a bully. It's not worth judging people based on something that's out of their control. Like, something I've always said to my man is like, especially when we talk about like the issue of religion and stuff, especially in this country, I've said I'd rather sit on the train next to a good, kind-hearted Muslim than I would a disgusting, greedy white businessman. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be surrounded by good people. And it's why I'm such a. It's why I love the fact that I've kind of formed this like little group with with Joe, Jay, and Ryan, the Renegades, is because they are free. And I always say good brothers. I've taken that term from Gallows, but the thing is, they are good brothers. We all get along so well, and they are good people. And the fact that I can surround myself with them and other good people in the company, just to name drop people, Fifi, Fiona, Imogen, Henry, Callum, just I could keep going on with the list of people that are in WAW alone that are good people that I am proud to be surrounded by. But I would like to give a special mention to, because we were saying before about leaders of this sort of movement, especially the Speak Out movement. I'm going to forget a couple, so bear with. Sierra Loxton, Katie Harvey, Pete Dunn, and Dan Maloney are the four that first come to my mind, of being four people that I think have dealt with the situation excellently and have done the right thing. And the Michael Oku and Vicky Haskins being made as like kind of heads of Progress Wrestling, I think is going to bring about great change. Obviously, Michael Oku is a very big part of the independent movement, so that's someone that's going to try to bring like fairness to everyone and try to treat everyone with respect. Vicky, being someone who is a key part of the Speaking Out movement, is someone that I think is going to bring a lot of trust back to Progress, in terms of, especially for the women who were who had a lot of problems in Progress, especially, again, Willie McKenzie, Travis Banks situation, or Jimmy Havoc's just entire situation. A lot of that stemmed from Progress management not doing the right thing. So I think having people that are part of movements that for change is going to bring a lot of trust back to the company. And the fact instead of burning it down and we're building it up again. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to burn down these old-fashioned ideas we have on sex, on gender, on religion, on race, and just build up again. We need a fresh start, in my opinion, and I think it's coming. I think change is coming, and it's going to be a change for the better.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I know it was very hard, but I'm glad we were able to have it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to have spoken about it again. I know, oh, white guy giving his opinion, but at the end of the day, you need everyone's opinion if you really want to find like peaceful resolution.
Definitely.
Like I've said with a lot of things, especially when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement. The mayor of was it? It wasn't Cincinnati, where George Floyd, the mayor of the town, the city,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yeah, I know all the US states. Trying to remember the cities and stuff is
Totally
complicated.
fine.
Yeah, but the fact that that you could tell even in that press conference where he wanted the four men involved in that case to be arrested immediately, but bureaucracy got in the way. You could tell how heartbroken he was from that one interview. And I assume you see the video, that 70-year-old white man that got pushed
Yeah,
over.
in Buffalo. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you read up on it, the mayor of Buffalo was in talks with not just the police, but with the forerunners of the Black Lives Matter movement in Buffalo, trying to find peaceful resolution. And the way I've always seen conflicts, especially when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, and any war in general, all wars, all conflicts end the same way, with people just sitting down and talking.
Yeah.
So skip the bloodshed, skip the violence, skip the suffering, and skip the pain that's being caused. Just go straight to the conversation. Sit down and talk. That's what you need, man. It's just it's like for the world's seemingly most unsolvable problem, the solution is the easiest one, and it's just sitting down and talking to everyone as equals and
Definitely.
finding the balance.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining. I hope people have gotten a good perspective from this from someone who's in the industry. Thank you so much for joining me, and everyone watching, thanks so much, and have great days.